There's some real basics I keep in mind with early reading. Does a child want to read, and how much time are they spending doing it? We call it time and text and intent. And I learned this from this wise old teacher named Judy Seaman. I say old, but she always came off as perpetually youthful. And, I would get into small groups and I would have these things that teachers like to do. They're called picture walks and pre-building vocabulary and on and on. And she kind of pulled me aside and said, all right, how much time are you actually spending in text? And that means where either you're reading and they're looking at the words, or they're reading and everyone's looking at the words, or you're all reading together. And I really started to think about that in everything we did with reading. And it changed the time they spent reading. A lot more reading happened. I think as parents, we spend a little time and we're so busy in our daily lives that we may be sidetracked and say, oh my goodness, I haven't got time to do this, and we spend just a few minutes. If we can get that up realistically to maybe 15 minutes of reading with our child, that's huge a day. And the other part of reading is, do they want to read? They're not going to do much or go too high or really enjoy reading as a way to acquire content and read quickly and sift through something and open that manual and that textbook unless they like reading and they're confident with it. So it goes hand in hand. If they can read fairly well, they're going to like it more, right? So how do you get those two things happening? How do you get that love of reading happening? The main ways I do it, and I've seen it work, are the organic way, the reading to the child, a love of books, that time at night, that book becomes their friend. You're not telling them what to do. You're their friend. It relaxes them and ingrains in their brain as they drift off to sleep, and is that friendly, happy place they go to. And the other way is timed 1-minute fluency tests. Why? Why is that such a big way to build reading intent? A child, when they are climbing up a chart, and you can just write their number of words in a minute on a wall or on a whiteboard with a marker, they see themselves going up higher and higher, and they want to read more and more. And they know to do that, they've got to read, and they start to want it. Simple incentives for this, such as fruit roll-ups or some other thing that could maybe be called bribery, but I call it stuff you give them anyway when they're doing well, like their chores, really gets a kid going. Now, there's lots of other ways to build intent. I send highlights magazines to my daughter and let her have a Coke once in a while when she reads. We play word games. In class, we'll play team vocabulary. All sorts of great ways. We'll spin a big wheel, like a Wheel of Fortune style wheel, and solve puzzles. These are fantastic. Once you have those two things in place, then diagnose the other stuff. When it comes to writing, it's paragraphs, 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 paragraphs. It's easy to a grown-up to write a paragraph, but it's very difficult, and it's the foundation. When you make a child think that every paragraph has a main idea, I like to keep the first sentence short and stick to 3 sentences and no more in early paragraphs. Don't overdo the paragraphs early. The second and third sentence are describing pretty much the first sentence. Expository writing, narrative writing, persuasive writing, opinion writing. There's all little tweaks in how to do those forms of writing, and they all have to be learned. But the paragraph is the foundation. Even if you're teaching them writing a letter, the main body is a paragraph. And yes, the formatting's a little different. You don't indent the same way. It's a paragraph. A verse of a song is still a paragraph. So, to recap, in reading, time and text is what I look at. Intent. In writing, you've got to get them to paragraphs. And I know how to do it simply. Start with simple sentences and build into that paragraph and get those thoughts that every child has into that form. Start there. I think you'll have some good success. Not just learning a word, we're learning how to use it in a sentence, how to act it out, and how to say it properly. The number one